Hello and welcome to another episode of Pittsburgh Sports Memories Current Events for the December here. I'm your co-host Steve Wirt and I'm joined by
I'm Tim Hannon.
all righty, we'll jump right into it. We're gonna get into Penguins hockey. Over the last week here, they lost 7-2 to the Maple Leafs over the weekend, and then on Monday they beat the Flyers 5-1. I think they're 1 point in the playoffs now. Like they're tied with the Flyers, but for some reason they're in the playoffs and the Flyers aren't. I'm not sure why that is. There's probably some tiebreaker going on, but it just kind of shows what's going on with their team right now, and they're either like barely in or barely out of the playoffs. So I'm not sure how long this will continue, if they'll just keep doing this all the way to the playoff time or what's going to happen. But it's definitely interesting, and it's going to make it difficult for them to either send the young kids down or play them full time. So they're kind of like in a bad spot, like we said last time. So it really hasn't, not much has changed, except they're now 1 point in the playoff instead of 1 point out of the playoffs.
And they beat the Flyers, and that's always a fun thing.
Yeah, Sidney Crosby had a couple goals, and actually, I watched the highlights. Tristan Jarley had a nice game, so go figure. I mean, Tristan Jarry, he's the gift that keeps on giving. When he want him to be bad, he's good. When he want him to be good, he's bad. So
Yeah, he's actually looked pretty good since he came back from that injury. But like you said, it's like impossible to trust him. So
yeah, unfortunately. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on the Penguins. We'll see what happens. Hopefully they make the playoffs, because like it's kind of like to the point now where you kind of need to, I think you kind of need to go in. I was saying last week you should just rest, but like this week now, if you're gonna keep hovering, I guess just play the kids and hopefully you make the playoffs. So Pitt basketball. We have not talked about Pitt basketball at all, Tim. They are, I think, 6-3, and they're kind of having an up and down season. They lost to Quinnipiac and University of Central Florida, and Quinnipiac. The only thing I know Quinnipiac for is the poll, the presidential poll, and they lost to them pretty handily. And then they go and totally redeem themselves, beating Ohio State on a buzzer beater, which I guess is the second year in a row they beat Ohio State on a buzzer beater. I think they're 6-3, 5-3, and they're not very good. I guess I'm assuming they're not going to make the tournament, and they lost a bunch of players from last year too. Like they lost the Twins and some other people. So see what happens, right, Tim?
yeah, that's they're not going to have a great season, especially once they start getting into the ACC games.
Well, they've already lost like 3 games and they haven't even played an ACC game, so I don't see how they make the playoffs or the tournament. I mean.
Yeah, Duquesne's in the same boat. They're going to have a just a sort of a mediocre season, I think, as well. So, but that's okay. I think I to me like supporting those teams and like in the case of Duquesne, I'm going to Duquesne game I think in January or February. Just I still nice to support the team and but I don't think that they're going to really do much either of those
Are you,
teams.
you're going to paint your face for the Duquesne? Got to support the team.
I am not.
So now getting into a sad football palooza, Tim. It was we'll play the sad football music because it was a very sad
Yeah,
football
it's a
weekend.
terrible weekend for football.
It was a rough weekend on the north side, and it was a very cold weekend. And
Mhm.
the play of the two local football teams at Acrisure Stadium sure did not help with the temperature and the spirits of local football fans. So we'll start off with the college team, Pitt football, in a huge game, like to keep their college football playoff hopes alive. They go and they totally lay an egg. They lose to Miami 38-7 in a game that probably wasn't even that close. What was kind of sad was the offense again was totally shut down by a top 10 opponent. I know Miami's ranked top 12th, but I think Miami's a top 10 team. They're pretty good. Um, the defense was somewhat ineffective. The only time they got pressure was they had the blitz, and they had to kind of disguise the blitz on defense because they weren't like beating Miami's offensive line. And Miami won the trenches both offensively and defensively. Um, Miami had 28 first downs. Pitt only had 11. Also, Miami on third downs were 4 for 7, and Pitt was 4 for 13. So, I mean, it really was a pretty dominant performance by Miami. And unfortunately, it was sad because Pitt was in the game. I think it was like I forget what the score was in the early in the third quarter, but it was like a 10-point game or 14-point game. And all Pitt looked like it had him stopped twice to hold him to a field goal attempt. And they take like two really, really stupid personal fouls to give the Miami team life. And, you just can't give a team with that kind of caliber of players that kind of life. That number 10, I have the guy's name written down, was really good. And he ended up scoring some touchdowns. So,
Tony, their
yes.
receiver. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That guy was really good.
Yeah.
Just like I said, too many, and like Pat Narduzzi, there was a lot of reviews like that first half, especially that first half. There was like 5 or 6 reviews. It seemed there was even like 1 or 2 in the second half, and the officiating wasn't great, and people were kind of booing the officials and whatnot. But I felt like Pitt got baited into taking those penalties. Like if I was at the game, so I was able to. I didn't watch it on TV. I actually watched it in person. And you could tell like on every kickoff, and there was certainly a lot of them by Miami since they scored so much. Like the Miami players would just hit like every kickoff sailed through the back of the end zone. I think there was one that was returnable, and every time the Miami players would come running down and like hit the Pitt players and try and start stuff every time, and like nothing was done. I've seen that before, and they like Miami just did that the whole game, and Pitt fell for it a couple times, and and that's what Pat Narduzzi said. He said, "We talked about composure, and we're going to play football. We didn't want to play their game, so that was the message: is not to get baited into it. And we got baited into it, and for some reason, the paper said that Pat Narduzzi didn't take responsibility for the team's performance. I thought that was taking responsibility. I don't know, Tim. Pitt not good enough for prime time. Any thoughts on the post mortem on the Pitt football season here?
Yeah, yeah. It was so. So first of all, yeah, taking this personal foul calls was just dumb. Um, but at the end of the day, I don't think it really would have mattered.
They would have been in it till the end of the third quarter instead
Right,
of the beginning of the third quarter.
right. In terms of a postmortem on the season, um, Pitt had a really nice little season, a really good season. They were 2-2. The freshman comes in and they were in it in the ACC title race all the way to the last day of the season. I don't think you really could ask for more. They weren't. They're not an elite team. They're not Miami or Notre Dame.
No, they're
They're not
not.
a playoff team.
No,
They're not. They couldn't ever hang with a team like Ohio State or Indiana
no.
or right. It's just not who they are. They're not. So they weren't at that level, but they were at a level where they were one of the best teams in the conference, and they hung in there till the very end.
They were like Georgia Tech or probably Virginia, like definitely better than Duke. It leads me to this. Like Pitt's not ready for prime time, and that's disappointing. And it's definitely, I've said this before. It's definitely the players, not necessarily a scheme. I think because it just didn't seem like they have like it looked like Pitt was a team that was on another level. Like, and these teams were like up a level. Like it looked like they were playing up a level in competition, and they just couldn't match it
Mm-hmm.
with talent wise. It wasn't even like scheme; it was just
Right.
talent.
And they're young too.
Yeah,
Again, a bunch of
yeah.
young
There
players.
are a lot of young players.
So it's something to build off of. And maybe those guys, now Mason Henchel's played in some big time games, and maybe that'll help for next year, or maybe it won't. I don't know, but I refuse to be disappointed about the Pitt season. Again, they were 2-2. They looked like
They
like
raised the
garbage.
expectations. That's what. Yeah,
They did, but that's a good thing. That's actually a good
yeah.
thing because we had and honestly, it feels a lot better than last year when they were 7-0 and then they just
Hmm.
completely fell apart. They were good, and they just weren't good enough to beat the elite teams. And that's really okay. I will say the one really disappointing thing, Steve, was that I couldn't believe that SMU lost to Cal later
Yeah,
that night.
that's the most. Yeah, it's like if they would have won, they would have been in the championship
They
game
would have been in
playing
the
Virginia.
championship game. Yeah.
And
So
the
that hurt.
ACC, what is wrong with the ACC? Like, I hate this
It's
conference.
not very good, is what's wrong with
It's
it.
no, it's not that. It's just it's run so poorly. It's run for certain teams, Duke and North Carolina, Florida State and Clemson, and all the other teams can like go to hell. And I'm just tired of the ACC. I've been tired of the ACC. I don't care about the ACC. I don't even care about them in basketball. Like Pitt gets nothing out of this relationship. They really don't.
They do though. They get to be in a Power Four conference. That's all that
Whatever. Who
matters, Steve.
cares?
That
Who
oh,
cares?
the millions and millions of dollars that it brings into the university is who cares?
Whatever. Yeah. So my point is, SMU lost to Cal on a missed field goal. SMU actually was leading that game by like 3 touchdowns at one point, and it came down to a missed field goal by SMU, which means there was a 6-way tie, which means 5 lost Duke is in the championship game over Miami.
Yeah,
Wrap your freaking head around that. And somehow Louisville got to ruin Pitt and Miami's season.
they did.
That's just the stupidest thing ever.
Well, it's a tiebreaker. I mean, you have to have tiebreakers, and so
There's
that's
got to
the
be
way
a
it shook
better
out.
better way of doing it. It came to like strength of schedule. I was reading the Miami Herald, and they said because Duke had a strength of schedule of 500 and Miami only had 434, and that's why Miami didn't get in. And that's just insane because I haven't watched any Virginia games, but I can't imagine Virginia is as good as Miami. But hey, you never know. Maybe I don't think Miami. I bet $5 Miami doesn't get in. I just have that feeling that they're going to get like the Florida State treatment.
Yeah, they might. It's the being in the ACC is not going to help them.
Yeah. So Pitt is going to some bowl game. Maybe January 2nd in San Diego, Tim. I don't know. Who knows? Who cares?
Would you
It,
be interested if it was the Pinstripe Bowl against Penn State? Because that's a rumor.
really?
Yeah.
We'll see. I don't know. I guess Penn State finally got 6 wins.
Yep, they're eligible. They beat Rutgers the other night, so that it's. I have no idea if that's even on the table, but I've seen that been bounced around. I mean, that would be at least interesting.
I think Pitt, because they won 8 games, is too good for the Pinstripe Bowl, but I don't know. It would be something that would get ratings and have a lot of people would probably be interested.
Right.
So we'll see. I wonder if Narduzzi takes that game seriously. He probably would. I don't know. So moving on to our other second huge embarrassing failure. Steelers football. They lost to Buffalo. Wow, what a shocker. Early in the game, they had a bunch of chances, and they probably should have been up 10-0 because they got a turnover. And it just got disappointed. Like the Bills were way more physical, and like I heard TJ Watt say that like he's never been on a Steelers team where they've given up the same play over and over again. James Cook had 144 rushing yards, and I think overall the Bills had like 260 some rushing yards. And I think the most disappointing once again, this is the second week in a row where a team was down to backups in key areas, and Pitt and the Steelers just could not take advantage. Like they just could not take advantage of the Bears and their linebackers, and they couldn't take advantage of the Bills and their tackles, and that's the sign of a bad team, Tim. So they're 6-6 and a deserved 6-6. They got away just much like Pitt in the second half. The first play, what's his name? Bosa gets a sack of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers gets hurt again. Mason Rudolph comes in for a series, throws an interception, looks terrible. Doesn't look any better than Rodgers did. I think the Steelers only had 37 yards rushing. They have no speed at wide receiver. I think they completed one pass. Rodgers completed one pass down the middle to Darnell Washington. They failed on a 4th and 2 that was just, it wasn't even close. I mean, the Bills totally stuffed them. And they tried to run that little play. Actually, Miami had run that play against Pitt and had a great success where like they have the guard and the tackle like kind of double down and they kind of like run. It's almost like a little counter play into that hole, and the Bills just dominated. Josh Allen made a nice play on 4th down for a touchdown and another rushing touchdown because you can't tackle the quarterback. Although they did kind of let him play. They didn't throw the flag early. Like they did kind of hit him a little bit, and they have to because if they're gonna just let Josh Allen run around like that and get the Patrick Mahomes treatment, I don't know what to tell you. So
Yeah.
I don't know, Tim. I booed Renegade. The crowd booed Renegade. Were you booing Renegade and
Oh
chanting,
yeah,
chanting
yeah.
fire Tomlin? You booed Renegade, really?
So yeah, you were there Saturday. I was there on Sunday. So the I mean, I have a lot to say about this game. But since you brought up Renegade, so that 4th and 2 you talked about, that was in the fourth quarter. It was like their last gasp
Yeah.
chance to. They got down to like the 13-yard line. They still would have had to score like 2 more touchdowns, but it would have been like, okay, maybe we've got a chance. And they got stuffed. And
And it
then
wasn't even close.
it wasn't even close. So everybody was mad about that. I've been going to games for almost 40 years, Steve, and that's one of the angriest crowds I've been around. And the crowd was
Wow.
just angry, and it was cold, it was miserable. The offense stunk, couldn't do anything. I know the defense got gouged, like you said. They couldn't take advantage of the tackles. They couldn't, stop James Cook. But honest to God, if at the beginning of that game you would have told me that the reigning NFL MVP came in and with one of the best running backs in the league, and they only scored 2 offensive touchdowns, and those didn't even happen until the second half, and we got a couple turnovers, I really would have been perfectly fine, right? To me, it was more the offense. The offense had the ball for what was it, like 17 minutes or something?
Yeah, well, they can't convert third downs.
Yeah,
And it's been
and they
like that
can't
all
move the ball.
season.
They're scared to like throw over the middle of the field. Like that interception that Rudolph threw was to Darnell Washington on the sidelines. What are you
Yeah.
throwing to Darnell Washington on the sidelines for? He threw into triple coverage, which was terrible. But why don't you run him over the middle of the field? He's like 8 feet tall. Why would you try to throw a fade to that guy on the sidelines? So the coaching's miserable. The quarterback plays miserable no matter who it is. Like you said, Rodgers or Rudolph. The running is non-existent. It's like they had no answers for anything on offense. And so yeah, the defense wasn't good, but to me, uh, like I said, you hold Josh Allen to 2 touchdowns, that at least gives you a chance. But it was apparent by really the middle of the third quarter, the offense was just had no answers, no new ideas.
It's not like Buffalo has like they have a decent defense, but
Right.
their
Yeah.
defense isn't that good.
That's exactly right. And they just had no answer. And so anyway, back to Renegade, when they got stuffed on 4th and 2, everybody's booing because people had booed all the 3 and outs. People then they got stuffed on 4th and 2. And then they like dim the lights and you can tell they're getting ready to play Renegade, and people just lost it. I mean, I actually walked out at that point, Steve. That's when I left. I'm like, I'm done.
Wow.
I'm like, you're gonna insult our intelligence this badly. I'm done. Because it was insulting. Like I hate to say like playing a song is insulting, but really what it's saying, it's like when your kids were 2 years old, right? And they were upset because they dropped their ice cream cone. And you're like, oh wait, here, cheer up, sport. Here's your favorite toy, right? You're trying to do that. That's like what it was. It was just it was insulting. People booed. People were so mad when they played that song because it was just saying to the crowd, hey, we think you're stupid.
Wow. Wow.
How else?
I,
How else?
I,
How else would you
I don't
read
know.
that?
I wasn't there, so I'm not
Well, why would you
sure.
play? Why would you play it after getting stuffed on 4th and 2, and we were
Because
down
you
by
need the
three
defense,
scores?
Tim. They
Oh,
need a
for
defense.
love,
They're deep
yeah,
in Buffalo territory. They
yeah.
can make a play and get the Steelers right back in the game.
The game was beyond over at that point, and for them to play that song, it to me it said, "We think you're stupid. We think you're trained seals who are really dejected about this game, but oh, it's our song. Go Steelers! Now we feel good again." That's the state of the team. Like I said, people were angry and miserable.
Do you think that's the end of Renegade?
No, no, I don't. I think that was just very tone deaf and ridiculous. But I will say I'm glad they're playing on the road this week. I think that that'd be really good for them because they cannot be home right now. People are real upset, and I don't blame them. Like, this is getting so old, Steve. Like, it's just getting so old. Every season we're, oh, we look good.
So
We
the,
have
the
some good
Mike
fans.
Tomlin checklist. I was going to say I thought we were off the Mike Tomlin checklist at this game because it's so bad. I think this is the worst. I've seen some Tomlin clunkers, but this one I don't know what it is. It just has a different feel to
Yeah,
it.
I'm with you.
I
It
don't know.
feels
I can't
bad.
put my finger on it. And I will say this: have you noticed the national media has turned on Mike Tomlin? Like, there's a lot of people saying what I've been saying that Tomlin should leave like 2 or 3 years ago. And there's a lot of people that are saying that. And there's a lot of people that don't think he's even a good coach. They're going into the Terry Bradshaw camp saying, well, I don't even think, Mike Tomlin's a good coach. I don't even think of him. So, I mean, I wonder. I wonder if Mike Tomlin's going to retire or take another job. Or I honestly thought if he could somehow pull out a Super Bowl win this year, that he was going to retire for like a year or two and then come back somewhere else. He was going to just try and ride off into the sunset because he seems like he would have been smart enough to pull that off. But he might. Maybe he'll retire. Maybe he'll just go, oh, I'm going to retire, and maybe they'll give him that because the Steelers don't want to look like they're firing a coach.
Well,
So
yeah, you asked if I was there for the Fire Tomlin chant. I wasn't, but to me that's pointless. I mean, you may as well chant. May as well chant "Win the Powerball" because that's about
peace
as
in the
likely
Middle
to
East.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, they're not going to fire. They're not going to fire Tomlin, so you can stop with that ridiculousness. Now, could they nudge him out the door the way that they kind of did Chuck Noll? That's possible. Could he elect to leave? That, like you said, that's possible.
I think like for both parties to save face, maybe like, and
Hmm.
he's so good with the media, and the media likes him still.
Yeah,
Maybe he could say, "Oh, I'm just gonna retire and take a year or two off." Or I think it would have been a lot easier to do, even if he would make the playoffs and win a playoff game.
right,
It would
right.
be easier to do, but I don't think they make the playoffs. Like I thought before last week they were going to make the playoffs. Now
Yeah,
I
this
don't
could go
know.
bad. You remember earlier, maybe like in the halfway through the season, you're like, you wondered if it was just going to completely fall apart. And I said, no, I think they'll like win one, lose one, win two, lose two. I'm starting to now wonder if this will turn into. This reminds me a lot of those Cower teams in the late '90s,
Yeah,
where
it just
like,
wasn't good enough. Yeah,
well, and like people forget, like not like 1999. I think we finished 6-10 that year.
yeah.
We were like 5-3 at one point. We were like kind of in
Mm.
the race, kind of like battling for first place. And then it just fell apart real bad. And I could see that happening with this team because, like you said, it's not good.
They're an older team. It's like it's a shame. I don't know what it is, and I've been thinking this for years now, and I think I've said this to you before. Like I don't know what the it is with this generation of Steelers.
Yeah,
Like
they don't have
now
it,
I knew
but
what the it was with the Bell Brown brought
sure,
like
sure,
the Killer
sure.
Bees. It was just total attitude, selfish, me. They just would never win a championship with those guys. And they were good. They were a lot better than the talent that's on this team. But this team, it's just it's not even like even when they still had some talent, it's just like it's the it factor. Whatever that it factor is, it's just this team just doesn't seem to have it. Like they're just
Yeah.
missing something to put them over the top. So
Yeah, and they've also had years and years. In the off season, I want to do an episode of our podcast. I'm going to pull like a Doc Brown from Back to the Future 2, where he's like, I traced everything back to this one event and started a chain reaction that destroyed everything.
it's probably a series of events. Like I think it's probably a series of
Well, stay tuned
decisions.
for that episode because
Yeah.
I have one event. I'm going to make the argument that we can trace it all back to one event. I'm not going to spoil what that was,
Okay.
but but um, but
Or it could just be a huge coincidence.
but I think it's been years and years of not having a good plan for what to do after that era that you just talked about, after
Right.
that Killer B era, and it's all kind of culminating now late in this 2025 season,
When did Antonio Brown leave the team? What year was that?
2018.
2018. Yeah, because they
Yeah,
really haven't been a competitor since.
like a legit competitor. Yeah,
I mean, they
I would
had that
agree.
COVID year where they went undefeated,
That
but
wasn't really legit though. Like you said, everybody knew that that was sort of a house of cards.
I mean, this is the worst team. Like, this is the biggest I've seen Mike Tomlin be in trouble since the Mason Saves Christmas season of 2023. And
Yeah.
that really, I mean, he really like this could have happened in 2023 if it
Mhm.
wasn't for Mason Rudolph,
That's a
quite
good point.
honestly,
That's a very good point, actually.
because they were heading to like be really bad that season. But once
Yeah.
again, who did they have too? And I said this before: Deontay Johnson, for all his drops and stuff, when he was on, he opened up that offense for
Yeah.
everything for Pat Fryermuth, for the other one, for Pickens, and now they don't have him, and they just can't open. Like Calvin Austin, like he was supposed to be this like great guy. He's like a slot receiver at best. Same thing with
Yeah.
Roman Wilson. Like there's slot receivers like third or fourth guys in. They don't have a true number two to open up the field for DK Metcalf or the tight ends. And that's been a problem the whole season. And the offensive line is mediocre on a good day.
Yep.
And I think that's really been the problems on offense is they can't run the ball effectively and they can't really throw the ball effectively because they don't have a deep threat, and they can't run the ball effectively because they don't really have a really good running back, and they don't really have any kind of offensive line.
I like mostly agree with you on all that. My only caveat is, remember like a month ago they were doing these nifty little, outs to the tight ends, and they were moving the ball and they were scoring 27 points a game.
I
So
think I think
it's
teams caught on
possible.
to that. I think as the
Yeah,
season went
maybe.
on,
Yeah.
I think teams have slowly moved everybody within 15, and you're back to like the Matt Canada days where everything's like, oh my god, everything is so painful with this offense. Like to get any kind of offense, it takes like 20 plays, and then you watch another team's highlights, and it took them like 3 or 4 because they can hit bigger pass plays. So I just I don't think it's necessarily a scheme. I think it's just they don't have a speed wide receiver or the offensive line to really run the ball.
Yeah, I don't think any of it's fixable this season. So
Well,
I think they're in
yeah.
trouble this year. And then in terms of Tomlin, I mean, I don't really know what happens there.
It's hard to predict because you just don't know like what's the ownership gonna do? Are they just gonna sit by and let this happen in turn? Because like I think it's just gonna get worse for Tomlin. It's just he's gonna probably have a bad season this year, maybe miss the playoffs. Like it feels like they have the Ravens twice and then Dolphins, Lions, Browns. So they have to beat the Dolphins and Browns to have any chance. So that gives them what, 8 wins, right, Tim?
Yeah, that's
So
not going to be
they
anywhere near
have
good
to
enough.
beat the Ravens once to get the 9 wins. They can do that. It's not out of the realm of possibility. And it's not like the Ravens are all that good.
Yeah, it's going to go one of two directions. It's going to go like you said, the Mason Saves Christmas direction, where they figure something out and they salvage a season, and then they probably lose the first playoff game if they get that far, or it's just going to totally collapse, like those late '90s cower teams. And then it's going to go one of two directions after that, because either you said the Rooney's, are they going to sit by and do nothing? Well, that's kind of what they did at during that Cowher era. They got rid of Donahoe was about the biggest change that they made, but they kept Cowher. Remember all those
Yeah.
years,
Well, that was the choice, was you keep Donahoe or Cowher, and
right?
they
Because they both
kept Cowher.
basically resigned and they accepted Donahoe's and not Cowher's. And but that was a power struggle. We don't have that here, but my point just being they stuck with the coach, and it eventually worked out. But people never want to remember this. Nobody wanted Cowher at that point either.
No, Cowher wouldn't go get gas in his car. Like,
Right.
I mean, it was bad. There were all kinds of like crazy rumors about Cowher and stuff. Although I haven't heard any crazy rumors about Tomlin. Have you? I mean,
Surprisingly not, but I mean, but there's a lot of
well,
people that
maybe
want
they'll
him gone.
start now because he's not winning, or I don't know. He seems like he doesn't get a lot of heat from the media, and I'm surprised the national media has really turned on him after that game.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
amazing what one game did to him.
yeah. But that's typical of the national media. It's just whatever's because there was the chant. So
Uh,
if you didn't have the chant to draw on, now it's
but
like,
then normally, like, they would scold the fans. They'd be like, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking
yeah.
about. Another team will pick him up. The Giants." That's the only rumor I heard today was, "Oh, he's going to go to the Giants."
I think again, if you want to talk about Tomlin, to me, I always like I said this a couple weeks ago. I don't enjoy conversations where people aren't even remotely objective. If you're going to say he's a fraud, he was always a fraud. The rest of the league plays chess. Well, he plays checkers. Okay, well that's not even factual because if he was such a fraud and he was such a bad coach, he wouldn't have won 2/3 of his games over the last 2 decades, right? So you
Yeah.
can't say he's just a terrible coach. Now, if you want to say conversely that he's gotten stale, that they haven't won anything of significance in quite a while, almost a decade since they won a playoff game, and that it's time for a change, just like it was at the tail end of the Noel era. Now that's where you've got a legitimate conversation, right? Um, and it also doesn't mean he's a bad coach. Look at what Philly did with Andy Reid. Was Andy
Yeah.
Reid a bad coach? Clearly
No.
not. He's won 3 Super Bowls since they moved on from him. But then Philly's won 2 Super Bowls since they moved on from him. So that was
Yeah.
maybe just the right thing for both parties. Maybe they just needed a change. Mike Sullivan, we had this whole conversation a few months ago with Mike Sullivan. Was Mike Sullivan a bad coach? Absolutely not.
I haven't
Great.
seen what the Rangers standings. I don't think they're doing all that
It,
great.
it doesn't.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
it doesn't. He's a good coach. Like the
Yeah.
Rangers could stink this year. He's. You can't say he's a. I don't think you can say he's a bad coach. He won 2 Stanley Cups. He did a lot of good things, and it was time to move on. Two things can be true at the same time. People don't do nuance anymore. It's either he's a fraud, he sucks, he was never good,
Either it's
he
the
inherited
greatest or the
Cowher's
worst.
players.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
mean, and I hate that.
Yeah.
Like, just be objective. He was a good coach. He did good things, and maybe it's time for him to move on. Two things can be true at the same time, and I don't. Maybe that's true, or maybe it's not. Maybe this is late '90s Cowher where he turns it around. I really don't know. I really don't.
Yeah. Well, that's why, you know, the owner of the team, and, has to, it really has to come down to, Art Rooney the second.
I
Yeah.
think I think Art the second doesn't have much of a legacy right now either
Yeah.
because everything that they won was when his dad was still there. So he's got to be thinking about that. Maybe, or maybe he's just going to stick with, hey, the way my dad did it, the way that the chief did it. I don't know. I really don't know what they're thinking. It'll be interesting to see what
It's
happens.
it's hard to see like a business go to like a third generation and be successful. Never mind a fourth generation. So
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
we'll see what happens. Hopefully, I mean, I don't say the Rooney's are going to sell the team or anything. Oh, that would be a disaster. Now that would be a disaster.
That would be interesting as well. But that's
Yeah.
not going to happen. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that again, I criticize people for not being objective about Tomlin. However, I just want to say again, I get why people are just ticked off right now. And I felt that at that game on Sunday night. I felt it too. Sitting out there in the freezing cold, watching a 42-year-old quarterback with a broken hand not be able to move the ball at all with a totally unimaginative
Yeah,
set
he
of play
can't take
calling.
snaps under center. He can't hand the ball off a certain way.
Yeah.
It's like it's just
It's a mess, and it's like I said, it's a culmination of a lot of bad decisions over a lot of time. So it's just where we're at. We'll see what happens. Doesn't feel good going into the rest of the season, though.
Well, let's get ready to make some more bad decisions on the way to our new year here. Then, I tell you what isn't a bad decision is liking this podcast on your favorite podcast service and following us on Facebook and adding comments on whether you think, yay, Tomlin should stay forever. Boo, fire Tomlin. Boo, renegade. Oh, Pat Narduzzi's a bum and he should get, thrown out with yesterday's, turkey leftovers. So I want to thank everybody for listening in and checking in with us on Facebook. Tim and I always appreciate that. And there's a lot of fun doing these, and we'll hang in there till at least the end of the season, which, we might only have to do like 2 or 3 more of these, Tim. They might put us out of our misery here, huh? All right, well, thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.